Well, after watching Chelsea's display at Arsenal on Tuesday night, it continued a really poor run of results. And Stevie Nicol, if we try and look ahead to next season, if we assume that Maurizio Pochettino is going to be in charge, they have a very deep squad right now of more than 30 first-team players. So who do you think they should be looking at getting rid of, and who do you think they should be look at potentially bringing in once they get the squad trimmed down? If we start with Mason Mount, what do you think about his future at Stamford Bridge?
Well, I think he would be one that I would keep. He certainly has to sign a new contract, otherwise he won't be at Stamford Bridge, that's for sure, because there'll be plenty of teams in for him. So I would suggest that one of the first things they do is they get him signed and sealed. You know, for me, people like him and Reece James are the type of players that you build the team around. Probably Enzo Fernandez. I think you have to keep Kante as well. You know, there are, unfortunately for a side that has such a huge squad, right now, the keepers aren't as many as the ones that you probably need to get rid of. And as you asked me about Mason Mount, he would be one of the first ones I would make sure that you tie up. There's certainly a lot of dead wood. There's a lot of, probably dead wood's the wrong way to put it. There are a lot of players who need to move on. You know, like the Christian Pulisic, I would suggest Christian has to move on and start playing somewhere regularly. So again, you got him. You got people like Loftus Cheek. I would suggest is in the same boat. He's in, he's out, he's in, he's out. He never seems to be a regular. He again is somebody who has to go and play, and who somebody if they stay won't get a game again. The obvious one to go is Aubameyang.
Yeah.
I mean, if ever a performance showed you that somebody is disinterested, it was Aubameyang against Arsenal. I mean, yes, he's up front. He didn't get a lot of the ball, but I tell you what, there was no sort of desire about him whatsoever to even prove, not just prove Chelsea wrong, but to prove his former club Arsenal, prove them wrong. So, I mean, right now, let's be honest, at Chelsea, there are so many questions, and actually, there's not many right answers right now.
They seem to be in the comfort zone. And when you're in the comfort zone, you don't really care what's happening. I mean, I think Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and his 5 touches in the first half before he got taken off at half-time
You know,
epitomises
Mark,
that.
can I change that? And I wouldn't say they're in their comfort zone, to be honest. I would say the majority of them are absolutely lost. And I think when mentally you're all over the shop, it's difficult to perform. I singled Aubameyang out because I thought he was the worst example of what's going on at Chelsea right now. But I would suggest that the majority are good pros and work hard every day and want to do well. But I think when you get in a place in a footballer where mentally you're all over the shop, you're not sure what you're doing. You're looking around yourself all the time. There's no flow to anything. You kind of you're lost. And I think that's why they need to get somebody like Pochettino in, plenty of experience, knows what he's doing, and have a pre-season, have a good 8 or 9 weeks out the firing line, and just go away and get back to some sort of normality.
Whether it's comfort zone, whether they're lost, I'm not saying you can't blame them because they've had 3 managers in April and they've earned 1 point from 6 games. They had a manager that played 3 at the back and then a 4 at the back and then a 3 at the back and then a 4 at the back. You've got injuries as well. Players don't know if they're coming or going. Joao Felix was signed in the January transfer window. Frank Lampard came out before the game and says, well, I don't really know what his best position is yet. I need a number 9. And he proceeded to play Aubameyang. It just seems there's a lot of jigsaw pieces and none of them really fit. Is it simply a case of in comes Pochettino and players that maybe think they don't have a future at the club, guys like Christian Pulisic, and who knows what's going to happen with Ruben Loftus-Cheek. And then it might be a case of, you know what, they might actually work. The problem you've got, Stevie, is you're going to have 30 players that might think it's a fresh start, but you can't keep all 30 of them.
Yeah, and it's kind of a little bit of there's a little bit of responsibility all around. The manager has to decide what squad he wants and who are going to be surface to requirements. the players are going to have to decide as well. Do they want to stick it out under Pochettino? You know, everybody kind of, when a new manager comes in, has this little thought that, well, you know, maybe he'll fancy me, or maybe I'll like him, or, you know. So there are a lot of decisions to be made on all sides, and clearly Pochettino's was the hardest one, because he's got to think. He's got to think for everybody pretty much. But there's no question, you're right. The responsibility lies with a lot of the players. But yeah, I mean, it's a complete shambles. And as I said, getting the right answer is a difficult part. There are so many questions, as I've said. That's the easy bit.
Yeah. I want you to put yourself in Pochettino's shoes, assuming he takes over. And Romelu Lukaku's back this summer because he's Chelsea's player. He's under contract. He's earning a lot of money. Is he someone that you've looked at and you've thought, right, last chance saloon, I can do something with this? Because they don't have many other options in attack. Or if it is Pochettino, he's already got to have made his mind up about one or two. If you're Pochettino, what are you thinking about Romelu Lukaku?
So many questions. There are so many ways you can go. I mean, is it possible? What are the odds that Lukaku, with his third or fourth attempt to be a regular at Chelsea, takes it this time? What are the odds? What are the odds that he can get rid of him? The amount of money he's on, They're going to want a decent price for him. So you might not be able to. He's somebody you probably might not be able to move, and until you get somebody else in, if indeed you're bringing somebody else in, then you might have to work with them. So, again, there isn't a straight answer. There's not an obvious answer. That's the problem Pochettino's going to have. He doesn't have any straightforward decisions to make, I don't believe, or very few. And Romelu Lukaku is right up at the top of the tree, you know, on so much money. And again, can you get rid of him? Look, if you can get rid of him, if you have a buyer for him, you let him go.
Yes.
And you bring somebody in. Again, you have to bring somebody in though before you can get rid. Unless it's Aubameyang, because I think Aubameyang is probably the only question that's an easy answer. He has to go. So Lukaku, I don't think you move him until you have somebody in, or you've decided that you're going to play Listen, Pochettino might decide to play a false nine. He might do a Man City and say, look, I'm not playing Lukaku regardless, whether he stays, whether he goes. I'm going to go with a false nine. I have players that can do that, you know. So, yeah, you keep him to start until you get somebody else, or until you decide, absolutely, he's not for you.
A couple more questions for you, Stevie. If you were advising Christian Pulisic, what would you advise him?
Yeah, you got to go. You got to go and play. You know, preferably it's in the Premier League. But, you know, go and play. Listen, Christian's going to get a move. I don't think that's a problem. There's no question. He's talented. It's just been the wrong place for him. Went there at the wrong time. Has been unlucky with injuries, and just never really got a chance to settle in there and become a regular at Chelsea. So, yeah, he has to go, no question. But I don't think he's going to have a problem at all finding a club.
Final question. Is there one player or maybe a couple of players that you think the new manager, whoever that may be, should be building the Chelsea team around next season?
Yeah, I think I mentioned them earlier. You know, if you have to keep Kante and Enzo Fernandez obviously isn't going anywhere, and he clearly is a player. I honestly think Silva defensively is a huge cog for them, because I'm not a huge fan, and I know Silva's nearer 40 than he is 30, but I still think right now you need to keep him until you get things settled down. The goalkeeper situation needs sorting out. I don't know what's happened to Mendy. He just seems to have fallen off the edge of a cliff. Kepa isn't the answer for me. He doesn't make saves, I don't believe, when they're needed. He's a decent goalkeeper, but they need a better goalkeeper. And up front, well, wow. I mean, this is going to be down to Pochettino. There is not one player going forward that has shown anything sort of the form that made Chelsea buy them, number one, and number two, when they had an opportunity, they haven't shown anything whatsoever, particularly Raheem Sterling. But he's experienced enough, and I would stick with him. Clearly, you're going to have to build round Mudryk. You know, you can't spend that amount of money and give somebody an 8-year contract and not figure that he's part of your long-term future, and he has to get playing. So, you know, as I said earlier on when we started talking, there are very few guarantees, and there are very few players that you're saying he must start and he must be there. Because right now, the majority of the players at Chelsea haven't produced, haven't done themselves any favour, haven't looked good in any sort of light whatsoever. And all the majority of them have done is made us question them, quite frankly, other than the 5 or 6 that I've mentioned.
You've worked with me long enough, Stevie. You know when I say final question, there's usually one more. So I'll need to stick a cheeky one in at the end. Should Pochettino put a cheeky call into Harry Kane just to test the waters, or is that a non-starter?
Yeah, it's a non-starter. Not a chance. Harry Kane would not go to Chelsea. And they won't sell him to Chelsea either.
That was the final question. I'm just impressed you said Fofana fan. That's first take as well. Excellent stuff. Lots to do at Chelsea. Stevie's always been a fan of Fofana. Enough of this. Enough. Stop this. It's turning into Dan Thomas's ESPN FC. Plenty Chelsea talk still to come ahead of their new manager, whoever that may be, in the summer. But one thing's for sure, he's going to need a clear out at Stamford Bridge.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.